Please subscribe to help you and your motorcycle perform better. So all of you that said we're using the wrong screwdriver, damn it, I'm adding the cost of these JIS screwdrivers into the cost of the build. Trash or treasure. Hours ahead of me of sanding, painting, sanding and painting. Now do you understand why I was so concerned that it started up? Because this is the worst part of all of this for me personally, because I used to do this quite a bit with my own race bikes. I painted them all. So this is not a 2-second job. It takes a lot of time. It's going to take us a few days. And those that paint know that to be true. Yes, we could have spent 300, well, maybe 400 on some painted bodywork, but we needed the custom paint, same as the bike. So away we go with sanding is prep so that the primer will adhere. Oh, 800 grit for those that are curious. For the scuffing process was wet and dry. Let's rinse this off. That's a bit fast. Slow that down a little bit. There we go. So, as every painter will tell you, it is all in the prep. The longer you spend doing the initial prep, the better the paint job's going to be. So, rinsing is one thing, getting most of the surface crap off. And then once that's done, it's going to be getting in there with a lint cloth and making sure it's clean. And any speck of dust that's on it is gone. Get on there, thank you. But wait, there's more. So we'll take all the clips off, we'll take the grommets out, and this will take quite a bit longer, just because we want to get the surface prep properly. Mr. Williams will choose to do the other half of the lower fairing in his expedient way, where I choose to do it with a little more time-consuming care and affection. So we'll see what Mr. Williams comes up with. But for now, back to sanding.
There ain't no little more time. It's not little. It's the wrong adjective.
Last step, now that this has been outside for about 20 minutes to get nice and hot and nice and dry, there's still lots of residue on the surface. So before we try our test area with the primer we've got, we need to make sure with a microfiber towel, any residue at all over this thing has got to be removed. So as with anything, be patient, do this carefully, make sure you get every nook and cranny and take your time. Rust-Oleum, tagged specifically for plastic, so this is going to be our primer, color's black. Having sanded everything down, what we need to do now is just go ahead and hit a test area. There's no point spraying it all if it doesn't adhere. So, first thing is to ghost it and just put a quick layer on. And leave it like that. So, this is going to dry, and once it dries, we can see if it bubbles, if it orange peels, if it's spider cracks, and it won't take long because that's just a ghost coat. So in 15 minutes we'll be able to see if this will adhere to that. Plus, with the sanding that I've done, did I miss anywhere? Because at that point, if it doesn't set correctly, I've got to go back and sand that spot. So your first coat is always a quick ghost over the top, and let that show you the areas that you missed. So we'll see how good my sanding was and how well this adheres in a couple of minutes. Dried, no problem at all. No areas that I missed. where it's not adhering correctly. So I'm going to go now bit by bit around the entire fairing. We have no wind today at all, and we're in probably the low 70s. So this is nice and toasty because it's been out all day. And that'll mean that, at least with the can that we're using for the primer, go away, we'll get maximum spray and adhesion versus the wind taking a lot away. So now just a little bit of patience with what you're doing and the coating, just to, like we say, for that first, just that initial coat. Doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to have some paint on it.
Are you feeling it?
So at this point, that's that first very imperfect coat. So it seems like I didn't miss any areas with the sanding. There's still some clumsy spots like that where I just put a little bit too much paint on the initial squirt, and then we've got some debris here and here. Whether that's insects or not, I'm not sure, but we'll have to sand that off. So overall though, from what I can see, we have no areas that require additional sanding because I missed a spot. So that's a good start. The next piece will be just that touch-up in those areas where it needs it. There's no runs because it's a nice light coat, so the next coat should be sufficient. And then we'll put one further coat on top of that, just a third and final light coat. So at that point, we know everything's covered. If there's any final sanding to do before the first cover coat of the color Dave matched to the can, then we'll do that. But at this point, let this dry for 20 minutes or so, maybe 30, come back, do it again, then do it again. But prior to the final coat, we've got to figure out what those insects are, and if this doesn't dry out and is a little lumpy, I'll just sand that one spot and dry it down. So far, so good. Beautifully smooth, may I say so myself. So now we need to do a little test to see if our paint that we're going to apply on top, which is gloss enamel, is going to adhere, and we want to do it where we can access this pretty easily. So we're going to go right on this corner. And that's enough. Again, just that first ghost coat. See when that dries if we get any spider cracks, orange peel, whatever. Because you go really slowly and easily with this type of paint, especially when it's in a can, you don't think about doing 2 coats, think about doing 7 or 8. And just cover it and walk away and let it dry, and then come back 30 minutes later. But of course you have to have the right ambient temperature and no wind to be able to rattle can properly. So once that's all done, do multiple coats very lightly and gently so you don't get any paint runs, because that's just a nightmare to have to go sand all that off, all that down again, start from scratch, because 9 times out of 10 you'll sand through the primer and then you've got to do it all over again. So nice and easy. Just coat it 6, 8 times, and then by the time you get to the final 2 or 3 coats, you can see where you've missed, and that's the hard part of being very precise with the distance and how much spray you put on. What is a paint run? It is that where it's been sprayed in a and then gravity has brought it down in big lumps. So technically, because I am me, I would sand all that back to primer and start again, because obviously that looks terrible. Now if you're doing a expedient job of 50 feet or 50 miles an hour, then that might fly. but not in my book, not on my motorcycles. That's awful. And again, it's so much work to sand all this back and start over, so lots of coats, not two. So the test worked out fine on our corner here. So as you can see, there's all kinds of reds and blacks, and so that's what I call a ghost coat. Just get something down and then keep building the layers up nice and steadily, because it's a can, it's not a professional tool. So at this point, like I said, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 passes just to get it to where I want it, and then we can guarantee pretty much an even coat. Once we're done with the final coat, then we have to sand it with 1,000 grit, and that's why I do 7, 8 coats, so there's plenty of paint. Sand that all the way down, and then we've got to put 2 coats of clear on it, and then that'll be finished. Then we get to do the big piece. These are easy. These are a piece of cake because they're small, they're curved, you can get in there, it's not a problem. Big surfaces like that, a lot more complicated, a lot harder to do, and you've got to have a lot more control of your hand and the distance over the bodywork to make sure you get an even coat. So now that the temperature is plummeting, we're done. Evening sun is about to disappear. We're pushing 4 o'clock Pacific Coast time, so we'll let this stay outside for probably another 30 minutes, let it continue to cure, and then we'll take it inside and let it finish overnight, and then we'll get back to it tomorrow. But the ambient's dropping over the rest of the week, so hopefully there'll be a 2-3 hour window where we can put a couple more coats on it, maybe 3 tomorrow. Don't want to paint below, certainly don't want to paint below 60 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, on to the sanding.
Okay, people, can you tell the difference between Dave's sanded side with what, 800 grit?
800 grit and about 40 minutes of sanding.
And me, I did do I dare you. Which one did I do?
Well,
Which one did Dave do? So far, Dave's been at it for 2 or 3 hours. I was at it for 15 minutes. So we ended up with a goober. Where's the goober?
Well,
Are you going to sand the whole thing?
I'm going to sand the whole thing, but there's the goober right there. Oh, let's take that off. Try again. There's just a faint line there. I'm going to sand the whole thing anyway, because at this point there's plenty of paint on it. We did all the coats. I'm going to sand it again with the 800 grit, and then we're going to do 2 coats of clear on it, and that will be all she wrote. Only 1 can of primer so far, and only 1 can of the red, with plenty left in the can if we want to do some touch-up work on the tail and the tank. If we want to do that, probably not. All right, clear coat time. Now that both are ready, you put 2 on yours, Dave?
I put 3.
3 coats. Did you sand?
Yes, between each coat.
On the clear?
On the clear, but not on the flat. So you didn't sand your flat either.
I sanded my flat once.
Right, I didn't sand between.
At all.
Right, no.
So you put 2 coats of clear on, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so my turn. Except for those blobbies, which are very annoying, which was from actually the paint can being too cold. But trash or treasure, it's cheap. Nozzle's clear. And here we are, the Trash or Treasure $8. No, that's not true. What? $8 and $7, $15 worth of paint with clear coat, plus good solid time and energy with sandpaper. So, looks good enough from 50 feet or 50 miles an hour. So it's going on. So all of you that said we're using the wrong screwdriver, damn it, I'm adding the cost of these JIS screwdrivers into the cost of the build. So we now have Japanese Phillips screwdrivers to use specifically on our Japanese motorcycle. So I hope you're all sitting there feeling very smug with yourself. Now, which one works? That one. All right. Yet another expense. This is the one I used, which technically goes there, because if you look at the length of the grooves on the screwdrivers we just purchased, the length of the groove is longer than what you get for your made in USA screwdrivers. So this piece, the depth of that cut would appear to be longer. The other part that's different is this on the bottom. It's much flatter here, and then the taper is wider, so it comes out like that versus the American one, which comes out like this. And that's very evident to see if I just turn that a little bit. There we go. Definitely a different taper. So does it fit better? Sure. Yeah, I think so. Easier to screw it in? No, it's the same amount of energy because you need the same amount of force to get it into place. So overall, we're just using the right equipment for the right screws. Does it save us time? No. Does it matter? No. But we're good to go at this point. So, okay. We still got to figure this out because it's out of alignment with the ram air tube because of the bolt that goes in there. Not sure if it is this type or not. We're not even close here, so I'm not going to worry about this bolt on either side because we have two securing here. Like we said earlier, turn signals will get glued in there now that everything's mounted solid. Yes, we still have our mirrors that we have to put on, but overall, at this point, realistically, especially in looking at this side of the bike, it would be nice to get a black Sharpie and color this in, because that's kind of ugly now with all this fresh paint. So I might donate a Sharpie to color that in. Piece of plastic, vital to the integrity of the bodywork structurally, so the bodywork doesn't blow itself apart. We have a varied assortment of push pins, and because we already had to drill a bunch of it up here, and because it's Trash or Treasure, we decided to give it just that sleeveless shirt touch at the end. Cable ties, my friend. Oh yeah, everywhere. All the mounting points for our V-bracket is cable tied throughout. So,
because those damn holes were not lining up as best we can with our fancy lighting.
ladies and gentlemen, it is time for you to judge. Mr. Williams, screw it and paint it, or Mr. Moss's sand it and make it delightful. So for Mr. Williams,
You don't know which side is which.
you will go thumbs up and like. And for Mr. Moss, don't worry about it.
Well, no. You don't know which side we did. So this
All they do, if they've watched the series, they know which side we did.
Yeah.
So, vote away. Make your comment.
Trying to stay out of the light so we get the best lighting possible. And of course, Mr. Moss did the headlight. The paint job wasn't exactly perfect between the new bodywork and the existing, but it's close enough. At 100 miles an hour, you'll never know the difference.